we're back. We've built these backdrops. We've got this table console thing. What else are we missing? Let's see. We've got this small little shelf, is what they call it, and the monitor. I'm not going to worry about the monitor. I don't even know if the client is going to use that, so we'll just move forward. All right, so it doesn't really tell me how tall this shelf is, so I'm just gonna have to eyeball it. You know, it's definitely less than half, so that helps. Let's start by moving our cursor to general area where we want that to spawn. Hit Shift A, mesh. This time we're going to do a cylinder. I'm going to change that to 8-sided, so it's octagonal. Let's adjust the depth a little bit. The radius has got to come way down. We could see that it's all right. It's plunged into the floor there a little bit, so that's getting close. I think we're going a little too narrow. Maybe 0.02, 0.03 might be right. All right, we'll do that. Okay, GZ to move that up. Let's get a little closer. All right, that comes in under halfway, but maybe too close. Let's do our function F3 to move the origin to the 3D cursor. Scale it on the Z. Whoop, gotta select it. Scale S and then Z. Bring it down a little bit. You can see these legs are quite a bit longer than what I've got going, but I don't know that they're longer. They just are shorter on the back, longer on the front. So let's move this forward to about where it would be. And then, let's see, are those, yeah, those are individual elements, right? Grab those guys, GY, bring them forward. Looks like mine are a little short, but remember, the beautiful thing about these, hit tab to go into edit mode, option Z to go in transparent mode, 1 to go to points, and then, but they're instances, so when I edit one, it'll edit all of them, right? There we go. About right, maybe a little farther. Okay. Coolio. Option Z to get out of that kind of X-ray mode. Still think this might be a shade high and a bit too wide. Let's see, tab. Let's see if we got them all selected. GZ, bring it down a little bit. Okay, and then Shift, right click to put the cursor on top. Shift A to add a cube. Scale that guy down. Let's see, we forgot to flatten these, the scale here. Control A, scale. So now those are 1s across the board. Let's see, we're gonna scale this on the Z, or as you Canadians and Brits would say, scale it on the Z. Scale it on X. You know, the width of it is about maybe a little over half the width of this smaller one. So the width feels about right. The depth is probably too much. We're looking at this. This has an interesting little curve on it, but I'm not going to worry about that. I think that's not necessary. Scale on the Y. Scale on the Z. Yeah, been watching too many British shows. All right, now Control A to flatten those scale transforms. Go to 2, Option Z. Grab these corners. It's more rounded in the front. We could do it the same on all. So sometimes, you know, when you're modeling, it doesn't need to be exactly like your reference. You're just getting an approximation, or sometimes you're trying to simplify it and help the viewer focus on, the artwork, the design, and not so much the individual little details. So remember to select an edge loop. You hold down Option and then click, and then to get a bevel, it's Command B. And for this, it's too many. Use your mouse wheel scroll to change the number of segments on the fly. Option Z, get out of X-ray mode. There we go. That looks decent. Now, you can see everything's still really faceted, right? We see the individual faces here, and so that makes it feel less realistic. Well, we're going to address that real quick here. So don't worry. And I think I mentioned it before, this view of the table console doesn't really show that there's a tabletop similar to what we just created for the shelf. But then this view, it does show it. So I like the way it looks with it better. So we're going to go back to this, hit Tab 3 for faces. And then we're going to duplicate this face by hitting Shift D and then Z to bring it up. I'm going to right click, hit Separate Selection, Tab to get out of edit mode into object mode. Now we've got it selected here. Let's hit Tab again to go back into edit mode. Then hit E to extrude it. Might be a little on the high side. Okay. You can hover over it, hit L to select all linked. And G, Z it to bring it down. I think I want it to overhang just ever so slightly. So to do that, I'm going to select the poly loop around the edges by clicking there, and I can extrude it along normals. We'll try that. I know that's going to add some extra geometry, but in this case it's probably okay. Just want to make sure it didn't, there's no like faces trapped inside of that tabletop, so that's good. Alt Z, so that actually was a good move. Go back to here too. Let's grab these edges that make up the corners, holding down Shift to select multiple. Command B for bevel. And kind of, undo that because I kind of wasn't able to see what was going on there. Command B. Okay, just a little bit of a bevel. Let's add some extra detail. Ooh! Looks like we forgot to, we undid too many times. All right. Fourth time the charm. Okay. That'll do. Oh, yep. Okay, our scale is still good. It seemed to function properly, but you never know. Alt Z. Let's go tab back into there. And I may want to bevel. Yeah, no, that's good. Let's go back to here. We're going to bevel these edges a little bit. Tab to get in there. Still not 100% happy with how this shape is coming together, but I think trust the process. So select these edge loops around the corners. Command B to bevel. Okay, that probably too much. Do 3 segments, okay. If I look at it from the front, yeah, they're still bugging me. Slightly scale those, that one in. Scale this one out ever so slightly. How's it looking? Yeah, messed it up in that perspective, or that view. Alt Z. So we're just going to scale it on the Y this time. Ever so slightly. Normally I wouldn't want to do this after I've beveled the edges, but the movements that we're making are so subtle it shouldn't mess things up too much. Alright. Get out of X-ray mode. Alright, that's feeling better. Alright, now it's time to make things look a little better. Well, first off, let's parent these. Control P, object. So now if we move this, the tabletop comes with it. It's good. Let's go back to our preview here. G, X, move this. And usually these things are like 10 foot by 10 foot, so let's just go ahead and update this. It's 5 meters, that's probably too much. 10 foot by 10 foot. Okay. We grab. Let's see, doesn't the backdrop parent it together? So let's parent this table to it as well. Control P. Now if we move that forward, good. GX, move it to the side. And that should just barely fit in there, which it does. Okay. Let's see, G, Shift Z to lock it on the X and the Y. Okay. Let's tab into this floor, hit 3. Gonna do E to give it a little thickness. And then I'm gonna put in another actual floor. This is kind of the carpet. Shift A, mesh, plane. Oh, put it in the wrong spot. So first let's do Shift S, cursor to world origin, Shift A, mesh, plane. Okay, scale that bad boy up quite a bit. Okay, and we're going to drop it a little lower. GZ, so that it's just under that carpet, if you will. Looks like it's not under it yet. GZ, there we go. And what about our backdrop? It's still poking through. No, it's better, but let's bring it up a little bit. GZ, so it's sitting on that carpet. How's this guy looking? He's alright. Alright, I'm talking to myself. Okay, so we're getting there. Save our work. Command S, of course. Alright, so this one's bothering me the most with all that crazy faceting. So what can we do? Well, got this little tab over here called Modifiers. And what we want to do is if we were to just throw a subdivision modifier on that, type in sub, it's going to start making it misshapen, if you will, right? So it's smoother, but it's definitely not the shape we want. So let's hide that from view by turning it off there. Let's add another modifier first, the bevel. And we're going to slide this up into first place. Okay. And you can see it's doing some weird things. Might be helpful to see our wireframes a little better. So one of these here, what is it? This one. Click there to see wireframes. So it's trying to add some bevels, but it's not sure where it should be adding bevels. So we're going to help it out here. First, I like to put a geometry, turn off clamp overlap, which makes it look gnarly for a minute. But then we're going to change this from 0.1 meters, which is huge, to let's try 0.01. That's a little better. You can see it's doing what we want up here at the top, but on the sides it's still messing it up. So that's why, well, first let's add a couple segments. So now there's 3. And then we're going to change this angle so that it has to be a pretty steep angle before it's going to start affecting it. So look, we've already moved it up to 40, and it fixed this. It's still beveling the top edge because it's basically a 90-degree angle, and then the bottom. So we're well within there. Could even bring this closer to 90, 60 or something so that it doesn't accidentally pick up some of these more subtle edges on the side. So I could have, not beveled these like in edit mode and could have just used the, this bevel modifier, but I want them to, these top edges to be a tighter radius, if you will. So let's try 0.002. So now you can't even hardly see it because it's so sharp, which is probably what I want. But it's going to give me some geometry to hold the shape together when we turn subdivision back on. So we hit this, see, look at that. It added more detail, smoothed it out. We can't really see it as well because we've got our wireframe still turned on, but we're stacking modifiers here to make things work. So let's turn off the wireframe. Oh my gosh, look at that. It's beautiful. Smooth, clean, still extremely low poly, which will help when we go to UV wrap it, what have you. So that's great. Okay, so now for this, we want to apply the same modifiers that we have here. So to transfer modifiers, what we do is we select the one we want to transfer it to first and hit shift and select this one. So make sure the lighter orange is on the one with the modifiers you want. Then Control L and we'll get this copy modifiers. Boom, just applied those to the tabletop piece like a freaking boss. Looks good. Okay, let's do that to some other pieces. Let's grab, well, this one I don't think I want bevel on there. I just want to, because I already beveled it, I just want the subdivision modifier, but this one I do, so we'll copy that. Control L, copy modifiers. Look at that action. Super smooth. Okay, this one we're just going to add a subdivision surface modifier. Crank it up a little bit. And on render, I'm going to make it even higher. Okay, looking good. And then these ones probably need both. So select each of those. Come over here, Control L, copy modifier. What? Look at those. So clean. And these may be tighter on the radius than what we want based on the design. You know, it's hard to tell. Can't see real close, so we'll call it good. Keep it. And then remember, these guys are within a collection, so can't apply anything to them right now. So what we need to do, go to this overhang light, uncheck this so that it's back visible, and then it should appear, yep, right here at the origin point of the scene. But we can select that, select this, Control L, copy modifiers. That guy's smoothed out. Oops, apply that to the other two pieces that are pretty small. Control L, copy modifiers. Alright, it's all super sexy and smooth. Cool. This may be too narrow. We could fix it. Maybe we will. Let's just fix it, shall we? Let's go to 3. Make sure we've got that. And then hit S. Nope. We're going to go to our scale right here. So we have our tool. And then we can use this little green box to scale it on the correct axes. Hit tab to get out of there. Okay, it's got some more thickness. We're going to hide this overhang light so we don't have it render in the middle of our scene. Then we can look at how these have updated. And look at that. They're all freaking smooth. And if we, you know, I mean, this is going to be brightly lit, so we don't need it. But if we wanted to add a light in here, we would add that to our collection, and it would reflect it in all those instances or clones. Okay, so that's the modeling done. Now, next step is to position our camera. So what I like to do is hit this little camera button right here, and then that shows us what we're seeing. And the camera is looking at it from the back, which is not ideal, right? And so we could, you know, get another view and position the camera by, you know, going up to the top corner of this screen, wait until we see that crosshair icon, and then dragging in another view. Then we could turn off camera mode, hit N to close that tool palette. And then where's our camera? It's right here. We could position that around, you know, rotate on the, whoops, we want to go global, RZ, try to position it, G, but as you can see, that's a little tricky. Yeah, you know, there's a time and a place basically, so we can get it there. But what's nicer for most of the movements is to just move around from within the camera view. So we've got camera selected. Now if we go to view, we want to check this, camera to view. Now if we navigate through our scene just like we would in a normal perspective view, we can position this to where we want it. Get the shot we want. You know, maybe we want a more dramatic angle lens, focal length or whatever. So right now it's 50 millimeter. Let's go to 35. Okay, and then zoom in, and then we're getting some more dramatic, I don't know, perspective going on. So there you go. Let's say this window's a little too small for you and you want it to fill up more of the screen. Uncheck this and then zoom in and position it. And then that'll move perspective window and not the camera. Go here. So once we have the camera where we want it, we don't want it to move around, right? So let's find a frame, 0 or 1 or something. And then with camera selected, which it is over here in our outliner, come into the window and hit I. Boom. and then that just keys this to, the camera to that frame. I'm not seeing it because this is scrunched down too much. There we go. So look, we've got the key here as well. We can hit X to delete that keyframe. So we've just got the one keyframe. So now if we come over here, we move it around, and then we move our playhead, it snaps back to that one keyframe. So, okay, so we're in a good position there. Be happy. All right, what's next? Well, let's start lighting the environment, right? So first off, for the look I'm going for, and because I'm more comfortable in cycles, I'm going to select this scene tab here and go change this to cycles. If you have a decent GPU, I prefer the GPU compute. It's faster. Again, if you have a decent GPU, I'm using the Mac, M chips. I think this might be the M2 Ultra or something that I'm using. But it works great on my laptop as well. Okay, so we got that. Now, where are my settings? Okay, so my number of samples, we got the viewport is at 0.1 and 1024. First, let's get into the render tab mode. Okay, it's just using the scene light and it's shading it pretty quick. I like to change this to maybe 600 and then change this one to 1,000 maybe. The max samples is what's going to really affect, well, max samples and your threshold. So you can see this is 0.01, so it's going to be a finer detail than the 0.1 that we're seeing here. But with the denoise on, which is actually super nice, you could probably go to 0.1, which I do a lot of the time. And with denoise, it'll look nearly as good. But we'll leave these settings for now. All right. So for an easier lighting setup, I like to grab an HDR. All right. So first let's go to shading. So this is where we can view our scene, add materials, HDR, lighting, all that good stuff. Okay, so initially we're in object mode, which would affect the materials for these individual objects. But to add an HDR or an HDRI, we go to object and then to world and scroll around until you find it. And if it's out of view, you can hit that tilde, frame all, and then you'll get it. So that's handy. So right now it's just a background color that's affecting everything. So we can change the background color, as you can see. Go brighter, darker, whatever. But we want to add an HDRI. So Shift A, start typing in environment, because we want an environment texture. Pop that in there. And then just for the color, we're going to plug that in. So now there's no image. So it's giving me this warning pink color. So we need to find us an image, right? It used to be these images were $100 and hard to find, or you can go create your own with a special 360 camera, which is still a good way to do it. But for most things, recommend PolyHaven. This is not sponsored by them or anything. It's just a good free resource. Pick a studio light. That's what I'm going to do for this scene. It's just small studio, 9, 8, several that are really close. I'm just looking for something that's going to be similar to a trade show environment with like dark ceiling, something like that. Let's try Small Studio 1. What the heck? We'll download that, and it's set to 4K EXR. Alrighty. So now, where is, gotta pop that into the correct scene. Booth. You may not be seeing what I'm doing here. Bear with me. Drag that EXR into my booth folder. Okay. So there it is. And then I'm just going to hit open, and it's already in the right folder. Open image. Boom. Now it's applying this lighting setup to my scene, which is pretty bright. I'm going to lose this light over here. Hit X, get rid of that. Okay. A little better. Let's make this fill more of the scene. You might change the strength to get more pronounced shadows. And then to change which direction the light is coming from, we actually need to rotate the scene. Okay. So to do that, we got to add some additional nodes. So Shift A for texture coordinate node. Okay. And then Shift A for a mapping node. Alrighty. And we're going to plug in the generated to this top vector. And then this vector into this vector. So now when I change these parameters for location, rotation, scale, it's going to affect the HDRI light or map. So I'm going to use Z to spin it on the Z axis. You can see the image spinning in the background, and you can see how the lighting changes. So I'm not so worried about the background, more so about my scene and what looks good to me as far as the lighting. And you can try some other HDRI lights, and things are going to change once we have materials on here, but let's just go with this for now. It's kind of some intense shadows still that I'm not super happy with, so maybe we'll tone down the light. We'll bring in like some area lights to add some diffuse lighting to the scene. And then I don't really want to see the light in the background or the HDRI in the background, so I'm going to go to this scene tab again, go down to film. Like my video of myself is in the way, of course. Hit transparent, and boom, it's gone. It's still affecting my geometry, my scene, just as I would like it to, but it's not visible, and it won't render either. It'll render transparent, so that's handy. As promised, let's add an area light. For the positioning of that area light, I want to have two views. Okay, so we're going to hit Shift A, light, area, G, Z. So, it's one way to do it. And maybe, we don't want to get a shadow from this light. So over here in the light settings tab, you can turn off cast shadow. It's not really making a difference with its current position, but keep that in mind. You can change the power of the light. There we go. Well, let's see about changing the position. My main goal here is I'm trying to soften some of these shadows. scale the area light up is going to give it softer shadows if it is casting a shadow. It's doing some real, I don't know, kind of go to local mode so I can, oh, but not, oh, object mode, global, local, there we go. So when I rotate this light, it'll be more predictable. Go up to 100 watt. So you can see the shadows softening out quite a bit as I get into like around 200 watt power. And we'll likely change some of this up later. We can Shift D to add another one. R, Y, rotate it around a little bit. So, you know, we get into different lighting setups, standard 3-point lighting, different things, but that's kind of out of scope here. We're just trying to get something relatively quick that we can work with for, you know, this project. Okay. So let's say we're happy with that, which are we ever, as designers or artists, ever truly happy with what we've created? There's always more that we could do, right? Okay. Look, I've got some emails I better check. All right, so now that we have the lighting pretty much dialed for now, it's time to go into materials and textures and what have you. So looking at our, oh, that's the wrong thing. Looking at our example here, we've got some metal bits, and from what I can see, it's kind of a painted gray, flat, semi satin or something finish to those. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get out of camera mode so I can get a little closer to some of these elements. Don't want to move for me. That happens sometimes. Let's select something. Tilde, view selected. Now can we pan around? All right. We're good. We're good. Back to it. All right, so it's a reminder we can't texture those elements. We have to go to our original kind of parent collection here. Light, grab a piece of the light there. And so that's selected. So to create a material for this object, I'm going to go down to this material tab here and just hit new. So it's assigned a material. It's just like the default one that was already on there, nothing special. Called material 001. We're going to call it gray metal. Okay, and then we can going to change the color of that to be in a medium gray. That's looking good. And really, that's, you know, probably done. But I'm just going to add a little metallic to it. Not much. Just a little. Okay, and then we can select these other elements, and rather than clicking new, we're just going to go to this drop down and choose gray metal. Okay. So we will now close this overhang light thing. And you can see that those have all been textured. Let's add the same to this metal. This is where things start to come together. Let's make this gray metal. And then because they are instances, they are all affected. That's beautiful. The one thing that doesn't work on those guys is modifiers. So we can see these two are faceted. It's this one faceted as well. Maybe I didn't add modifiers to any of them. So kind of have to add it to each one. So select the one we're copying from second, hit Control L, copy modifiers. We'll do it again. Control L, copy modifiers. Shift to select multiple, Control L, copy modifiers. So now those feet are smooth, no longer faceted. Alrighty. Okay, so we've got our metal bits done. Go back to what we're looking at here. You know, we can do something for the carpet. I'm not going to try to mimic this pattern or anything. Just create a new material for that. New. We're just going to call it carpet. And make it a darker gray. And you can see, you know, it's got 50% roughness, but we still see a little reflection. Just gonna, carpet's rough. Let's just crank that all the way up. And still, I mean, obviously we don't have the individual fibers, but the secret to more realistic materials like fabrics, carpets, is sheen, which I used to never really understand what that was all about. But let's just crank it all the way up to 100. So it's got a white, but you can see it's got the way that light reflects off of it. It's got kind of a fabric-y feel to it now. So let's change this to a gray instead of a white until we get something that's, you know, feels carpety. Maybe we make this a darker gray here. And I should probably snooze my filter or my disruptions, go into do not disturb mode while I'm finishing this up. It's like amateur hour around here or something. All right, other elements. So we can do this kind of floor, which is probably like a concrete. And I know I've done a concrete texture on the floor recently with some assets, so maybe we'll bring that in, but for the time being we're just going to use a color. So we'll just do new, call this concrete, and grab another gray, but let's give it a tint of a warm gray. There we go. So even that is pretty believable because it's got a subtle roughness to it. We could even make it a little more glossy. And so that may be good enough for these purposes. Okay, now for these tabletops, let's call it like a dark gray tabletop. Okay. Somewhere in there. A little more rough. All right, let's add the same material to that tabletop. See, so this stuff is pretty quick, straightforward. Now, trickier part is going to be the bits with printed materials on them, right? So let's go to that. So first step before we can throw textures on these is we'll want to UV unwrap them. But to get us started, let's just go ahead and create a new material. And what are we going to call this? We'll just call it artwork. Okay, and let's give it a random color that kind of annoying. All right, that's got artwork applied to it. This one we're going to add artwork to as well. And this one as well. Okay. Sweet. Now, if you were looking for just a paint booth, you're done. Render that boy out. But for those of you that want to take it a little further, let's go to the UV editing tab. All right, so over here on the left are your UVs. Over here on the right is just another perspective view. And you can see that what I select over here is reflected over here. And what I like to do is check this guy right here, because then it kind of selects everything, and then it also, when I select something over here, it also selects it over here. So that just helps me understand where things are a little better. So for this, the artwork is primarily on the front of these different assets, right? So that's the one I'm most worried about. But if you're going to have things that, you know, are really important around the edges, I mean, first of all, these booth vendors don't really allow you to do that. But sometimes they're double-sided, so you'd worry about both sides. But for now, we're mostly just worried about this. So what I do is I select that face or faces that represent front. And because we're using modifiers to add beveling, it makes this part easier. We just select the one face. So with that selected, go to my UV drop down, unwrap, and then Smart UV project. Just leave this stuff at detail or at default. Hit unwrap, and there you go. We've got, and this moving things in the UV edit is just like doing it in perspective for the most part. You can hit G to grab and move it, or R to rotate. You can hold down Control to snap it into place, all that good stuff. So let's scale this down, and just to make sure I've got the right side, I'm going to select these. Okay, it's over on this side, so the orientation is correct. That's good. Let's grab this, move it out of the way, and then all of these other pieces, I can just, is it Command I? Yeah, to invert the selection. And then I just scale those way down, because they're just going to get one little color applied to them from whatever image I use. It's not going to be a real accurate UV wrap. And obviously it depends on what you're wrapping, but for this, that's going to work just fine. Okay, so we got the first piece. Let's go to piece number 2. Same thing. This is the only piece we really care about. With that selected, we're going to hit UV unwrap, Smart UV, bada bing. We're going to rotate it, hold down Control to snap it to 180. Scale it down a little bit. Just going to move it out of the way. And then hit Command I to invert. Same thing here. We're just scaling this way down. Moving this one up to this general area. And we'll, fix the layout here shortly. But for now, there you go. Okay, so that's those done. Easy. Now the only thing left to unwrap is this guy. So tab, get into here. Now this one has more geometry involved. And depending on our design, we might need to be more careful with more of it, but let's look at our design. Here it is. Okay, we've got this purple bar going along all sides at the bottom. So that being said, I'm going to have to pay attention to those a little better. So what should we do? Well, first of all, let's hit our !/ key to isolate that. And then what we're going to do in this case is hit 2 for edge mode. We're going to employ some seams here. So holding down Option, select all those top row of seams, and then I'm going to hold down Shift and Option to get this. So we're basically, where's this thing going to be cut to be able to unwrap it in the best way possible. So those are my seams. We're going to right click and we're going to hit Mark Seam. Okay, now when we unselect, you can see where those seams are at. And at this point you could say, okay, maybe I don't want seams on these front ones. Right click, clear seam on those ones. So, but I'm going to keep them. Okay, so now with those seams selected, I'm going to hit A to select everything, and then UV unwrap, Smart UV project, hit unwrap, and now it's unwrapped everything to scale and how it sees fit, essentially. This little bit is not quite what I expected, but that's okay. We'll figure this out. All right, so we got to make sure, let's go to 3. So everything's upside down. So if I select these, those are the top. So first off, I'm just going to select one of these, hit L to select all of it, R, and just flip them all over, holding down Control 180. This one, L, R, Control 180. This one, L, R, Control 180. And again, R, Control 180. Okay, so now everything should be at the top. We've got the front and the back. If we just select some of these, we can see it's on the right side. That's good. And these pieces won't really be seen, so we can scale those down. Scale them down even further. Just move them out of the way. Now, which one's this? The front or the back? That's the back. This one's the front. And if you don't remember, you can hit / to get your bearings. Okay, so I want to select all those, Shift, select all those. This little piece may be problematic for me, so we better I'm probably going to have to flip them. Yeah, let's just do that now. Linked, R, Control G on the X to scooch it in there. So it's not perfect, but for what we're doing, it should line up correctly. So select those, L, L, these ones, L, L, scale it down. Whoops, we forgot some. Hold down Shift and grab those. Okay, got them all, that's good. Scale it down so that they're all staying uniformly sized. And then we just want to position them where we need them. Keep them on the same axis, so G, X to slide it along. And then, so if this is the front, then we want, not that it really matters, but this next side to be next. So link that, G, I'm just gonna loosely put it in the right spot. Link that, and this one could go here or here. Let's put it here because that's where it matters most. Based on the views we're going to be getting. Okay, and then, whoops, I just accidentally hit it. Come on now. There we go. H is hide, option H is to unhide. So G on the X, let's get those fairly close. Make sure on the Y they're okay as well. That's another thing. On the UV screen, it's only X and Y. There is no Z orientation. So, because what we're going to do is that purple bar is just going to go across all of those, right, at the bottom. Let's grab this, and just for ease, we're putting these all right next to each other, and we want those tops and bottoms to be aligned as closely as possible. GY, just bada bing. Talking to myself. Okay, so there we go. Now, what we want to do is get back into object mode, hit question mark / to no longer be isolated, and then select all three of these objects that are part of this UV. Then hit tab to go into edit mode. Now everything is editable, and now what we want to do is move things into a position where, you know, they can fit in this 1x1 UV square, and we can create our texture from it. So there we go. There's the top two. Pretty good placement. We want to get these little pieces out of here. Gonna hide them over here somewhere. There we go. That one can come down in size just to be a little closer. Okay. And then this one, bring that over here, scale it down. Okay. Then grabbing all of these, we got some more real estate we can work on, or work with. So you like to, you know, fill up your UV as good as possible, because that will allow you to get the highest resolution images, textures. Okay, so we're set. Let's cursor to origin. Okay. So now what I like to do is just zoom in so this is a decent size, and then I'll grab a keyboard or a screenshot of this just to kind of capture that layout. And then I'll go into Photoshop, and this is going to be, now obviously this artwork is in the wrong place, so we're not going to worry about the placement of that quite yet. So let's hit Command V, get that in there, and then I'm going to scale this up, Command T, until this inner white line is pretty much bang on the edges of the image boundaries. Alrighty. So that's pretty much there. So now that is a guide and a one-to-one representation of what's going on over here, so that when I bring in this texture, it'll line up perfectly. You can adjust things later, but might as well get it as close as possible at this level. All right, so we've got the Arbor XR logo and the console stuff down here, and then we've got the two banners here. And let's scale this up. And you can see I duplicated it. And then I want to change the opacity or do multiply or something just so I can line things up as close as possible. And T, scale it a bit more. All right, now obviously you can take a lot more time, you know, as you work on your booth artwork, but this is just, you know, at this point designed to kind of point you in the right direction. Okay, so now with our second version of this artboard, I'm gonna scale it up to work with the console piece. Now let's change our opacity on that bad boy again. Scaling it up quite a bit. And this was, you know, this is coming out of Illustrator that I just this is coming out of Illustrator, and I just saved out a raster version just to get it in here. And we can see things aren't lining up exactly right. So we want to get that logo to be generally in the right place. And we can play with the purple after the fact. Okay. So I'm just gonna take this, select the areas of it that I want to keep. We're gonna crop that, and then we're gonna rasterize this layer. And then we're going to apply this layer mask. Okay. So now I can just, you know, let's go back, get our opacity down, check the centered. It's generally where I want it. I'm just going to drag a marquee around it, hit Command T, hold down Shift, scale that in the X-axis so that it's going to be the same artwork that goes throughout the entire piece. You know, all parts of that console UV map here, and then we're doing the same to the top and bottom, just stretching this out. When you do it this way and you're dealing with solid colors, even though it's raster, it's not affecting the quality. Okay, now for this top piece, let's go ahead and crop it again. We're going to rasterize it, crop it, apply layer mask, and there we go. Let's change the opacity. So this one has these lines kind of really close to the edges, and we don't ultimately want that, so we're going to do some quick painting, if you will. I'm going to select this line up here. Just hold down Shift to select these harsh borders on the white areas. You don't have to get it all in one pass, but if you can, great. Okay. Now I'm gonna hit G for fill, new layer, grab white, paste that in there, There we go. Those ones are hidden. You know, these edges around this darker shade of blue doesn't bother me as much. So you can decide if it's worth selecting or not. For now, we're not going to worry about it. So I'm going to hide this gray kind of find your way layer. Then we're going to save this, export it as a web, 2048 by 2048. Save that bad boy. Booth. Assets. Create, just call it something like concept 1. Because we're going to be mocking up 3 different concepts to share with the client, and this is the first one. Okay, so that's saved. Now we can pull that in. For reference, we'll open an image here. Assets, it's that one. Hit open image. You know, it changed the zoom, but it didn't actually change positioning or anything. So yeah, that's where we want it. Now if we go back to shading, and so we got to replace this pink color with the artwork, right? So hit Shift A and start typing in image for image texture. Plug that right on into the base color. It's still going to show pink because that's an error. Hit open. Grab concept 1, open image, and boom. Everything is put precisely where it should be. And then we can play around with, you know, the perspective and that. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. So this one was largely just blue everywhere, but we've got this white edge just because of the way we did it. This other one with the angle of the camera doesn't matter as much, but that should have the image kind of wrap around there as well. But yeah, so you know, it's interesting to see how this table blocks this text here, and that's something that probably don't want that low on the design anyways. Probably bring it up here before we send it off to the client. Sometimes you don't really put 2 and 2 together until you get it into a 3D environment like this, which is one of the reasons why it's valuable to take this step. Okay, so if I go back to Photoshop, and well, do we need to go back to Photoshop? Not necessarily. So this is the one that's selected. We want the other pieces to be blue as well. So this tiny little piece here, we're just going to grab it and drag it into a blue area. So now if we look at things in render mode, oops, we get the blue wrapping around the edges in the back. Oops. Okay. So that's successful. So on this one, if we do want to take care of some elements, we can do a couple of different things here. So first of all, let's kind of cut this, just not going to hurt anything. Just hit Command R to drag a point there, and this is a tiny little window. Let's make this bigger. Let's isolate this guy, and then we're going to go to the bottom and do the same. Command R. Whoops. We want it about right here. Okay. And then what I'll do, I'll hit K for the knife tool, and then it will snap to that point. I can rotate and zoom with the knife tool still active and then snap to that point, and then hit right mouse button or enter to release it. So now that has a cut down the middle that won't be visible, but it'll help us with materials. So okay, hit that point again, snappy snap, hit enter. Okay, great. So now what we're gonna do is go to Option Z. Oh, we can't do Option Z in that mode. I think, what's going on? All right, we're in there, it's just looking different. So we're trying to get all of these, oops, oh, I gotta be in 3. Okay. We're trying to get all these elements that make up pieces that will be purple. We don't need this piece on the front because that is where it should be. So you can see that some of this was highlighted over here. So just hit G to grab it, move it into the purple. All right. So now if we get out of that, you can see that those edges are now purple. We didn't even have to go back into Adobe to fix it. We are getting a little weird line here, so that's a little trickier. But generally got what we want. Okay, what else is going on? Well, we're getting some weird distortions. I wonder why that could be, right? Well, I'll tell you, it's because of the subdivision surface and the fact that I started to slice this thing up. So that's not good. Okay. So to fix that, we just need to add some more definition to the design. So let's start by slicing it in half this way. Run 3, Command R, and right click, and then so that cuts it there. Now let's come around to the other side, do the same thing. Right click, we're going to pull out our handy dandy knife again, K, snap, you can kind of see where it snaps to know if it's in the right place. Looks like it is. And then snap and snap. Okay, so that did not work, and that was because I had that selected, I believe. Well, and I went all the way through instead of stopping in the middle here. All right. Okay, so see that adjusted things. That's good. Now do the same over here. Okay. And then we want to go to 1 and reposition those so that they're in a better place. Straight across. Okay, so that is better. This bottom area we can slice as well. Get it close to the bottom. That's good. This top area we can't just run a slice through it because of the way it's built. So okay, cut it this way. And then same over here. Whoops. Make sure seems to be pretty good, pretty straight. All right, and then you can decide Command R to help to add some other cuts just to hold things better. Let's add one in here. Yep, feels better. Didn't go all the way up and around just because this is an end-on. But we can fix that. Command R. That where it needs to go. Okay. The knife tool, super powerful, can help you create some really good stuff. If you want to see me use the knife tool more, check out my series on creating the Polaroid camera in Blender, because I use the knife tool a lot. A lot indeed. Alright, now if we hit tab, it applies the subdivision surface again. Remember, we got a weird white line here, which if we take more time with the material, that'll fix that, but for now it's going to work just fine. Okay, let's get out of that mode where we're isolation mode, and that is looking good. This console is perfect. So let's go into this mode where we can see the whole thing. Go to layout. All right, that's looking pretty good. Like I said, I may want to change the text and re-upload it and see how it looks at that point. But for the most part, I think it's looking pretty good. Okay, well, now for the final piece, which is rendering. Okay, so you've got a pretty clear idea what it's going to look like. And then, like I mentioned earlier, you've got your render engine, different settings which affect speed. Got some different settings down here that you can explore. This has some information about your image. Is it 8-bit, 16-bit, have alpha, PNG. Some of these things you can change after render, but it's nice to just get it done. If you want it to output to a specific place, you can change the output location. Color management. It's an area where I need to learn more about. It's kind of a hit or miss. I try things and how's it look, whatever. Okay, let's go with it. But then once you're happy with it, you just go up to render image, and it'll bring up a separate window. And a lot of times, especially when you're using the GPU, the first one will take longer. It might take a minute to wrap its mind around everything. And then the next ones will go a lot quicker, but still we're at under 16 seconds, so that's pretty good for a 1920 by 1080 image. Hit image, save as. Just make a new folder called renders. Just call this booth 1. Then we'll hit save. And then I'll show you, in Photoshop, I'll usually just grab that file, drag it on in to its own piece of artwork. And then, for the background, I might drop in a solid color. Maybe it's black, I don't know. drag it below. Okay, we've got black. So that gives us some good pop. But maybe we want to increase the, contrast and overall look of the image. So we'll add like a curves editor. Slide this in, brighten it up a little bit. Darken, but also, make it more dynamic. You can toggle those results. Depends on your taste. You don't want to blow out any areas or anything, but that's feeling pretty good. So again, this white line's bothering me here and here. So before I send it to the client, I'll probably address that. And then I also want to move some stuff around a little bit, but overall, that is what we're looking at. Thanks a lot, and till next time, my friends, just keep on creating. Create or die.